Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. For over 30 years, Edward Meyer has traveled around the world collecting unusual stories, unbelievable artifacts to fill, believe it or not, books and museums. He's a walking encyclopedia of information, some strange, some gross, but all true. He's the Vice President of Exhibits and Archives for Ripleys, and he's with us on This Week in America. Edward, welcome to the program. It is great to have you here.
Hey, it's literally my privilege. It sounds like we're going to have some fun today, and fun is Ripley's middle name, if not my own. And, we got a great new book, Dare to Look, and I think that our audience here is going to enjoy what we have to say.
Before we did the program, I'm looking through, and I was going to take a couple minutes set aside and look through the new book, Dare to Look. And suddenly I find myself like an hour and a half later, I'm still looking through. Once you pick it up, you can't put it down. It is fascinating. This is the 10th edition, but everything in here is all new. I mean, you literally have hundreds of color photographs in here and all new material.
All new material, as in never published by Ripley's before. Now, the bulk of the stuff is really new, as in, the last year or two, but there is some archival material, a great section on giants from the late 1890s, but never before shown in a Ripley book. So that when we say all new, doesn't mean it all happened yesterday, but it's new to the format. And roughly 2,500 stories, 500 photographs. As you said, it's the 10th annual. We've done about 300 books in our careers since the first one back in 1929. But this is our premium line, the one we're most proud of, and it's the 10th year we've been doing this. Put it out this time of year, makes a great gift item. As you said, it's really hard to put down.
Yes.
You lay it where people are going to see it, and they're going to be attracted by the bright, fancy covers, open it up, and pretty soon they've read 50, 60 pages.
We're talking about the newest edition, Ripley's, believe it or not, Dare to Look, the latest annual from Ripley Publishing. Website, and you get all the information, is ripleys.com. Our website will also link onto that as well. And this is available at major bookstores all across the country. And new this year, talk about this, the OddScan, because this is sort of an interactive thing. It brings a whole new element. It's just not a book, sitting there, a passive book. You can actually have some fun with this.
Whoever thought that, you could make a book come to life?
Yes.
But that's what we've attempted here, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Go to your app store, wherever you buy your apps for your phone or your iPad, and you can download a free Ripley app that's called OddScan. And 18 different pages within the book have a bright red and green logo that says OddScan. You scan those pages, and you get hidden content. There's actually a whole chapter, which I think is really cool. You got a 256-page book, and it's pretty neat, but if you get another 16 pages for free, and each one of the 18 different places typically gives you video. So we've tried real hard to make the book come to life. Pages 271, 272, we got a guy that 171, 172, sorry. Kevin Mikado puts 161 clothes pegs on his face. Don't ask me why. Pretty strange behavior. But cool picture, classic Ripley-type photograph, but do the OddScan, and you actually see video of him putting the 161 on his face and taking them off, and what his face looks like after he's had 161 clothes pegs attached to him. And this is just one sample of the 18, but it's the one that's closest to my heart because we did it here in our offices in Orlando, Florida, so I can personally vouch that he really did put 161 on there and lived to tell.
The book is Ripley's, believe it or not, Dare to Look. It's the latest annual from Ripley Publishing. Another section in there, and there are so many things to talk about. You've got to get the book and look through for yourself. You've got the biggest collection of dummies, and we're not talking about a political convention here, that readers will ever see. It's an 8-page gatefold on the history of ventriloquist, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, the last 3 or 4 books we've done, I'm old-fashioned enough, and I guess places me in time that I call it a Playboy centerfold, but a spread in the middle that folds out for, extra content again so that we can really delve into a subject. And this year's in Dare to Look is on the history of ventriloquism, some of the major people that performed, like Edgar Bergen and his dummy Charlie McCarthy, and that there's an actual museum of ventriloquism. And it's one of the creepiest pictures, actually, in the.
Yes, it is.
It really
yes,
is
it is
kind of a strange photo, seeing about 100 dummies looking at you, and until you've seen them like that, you don't realize that they're all different. They were all individually made for the ventriloquist's particular skills, and you can tell that there's some love and devotion in the creation of these dolls.
I mentioned you traveled the world to find the items you have in Ripley's, Darryl Lickens specifically with this issue. How difficult is that, and how do you go about compiling this?
Well, I'm well-traveled, but I pale in comparison to Robert Ripley. The company's founder actually went to 201 countries and was nicknamed the modern Marco Polo because he literally went everywhere.
And he did this back in, the 1930s when it wasn't that easy to get to all these places.
Exactly. A trip to China took 5 or 6 months, not 20 hours. I have traveled a fair bit, but the job is considerably easier now than even when I started 35 years ago, never mind when Ripley started 100 years ago. We have 2 research teams, one in England that specifically deals with the book, and one in Orlando that deals with our web page, with the books as well. And my forte is I'm the guy that actually buys the exhibits that go in our museums around the world. So, we've got a big team that are constantly looking, and that is true to say. Ripley himself used to say he'd never had a holiday, and I used to joke about it, but I come to understand it because I've been here long enough that, my mind is set that I may be sitting on the beach in Jamaica, but I'm, still thinking about what if a flying fish jumps out of the water and goes 100 miles an hour or something. Once it's in your head, you're looking for, believe it or not, it's everywhere. And a lot of the material comes to us. We have popular websites, and we invite our, Facebook and Twitter. We literally invite our patrons to tell us the stories, and a good deal of the content finds us as opposed to us finding them. And again, that comes with age and credibility. We are known as the purveyors of the odd and the unusual. So if somebody has a 2-headed cow born on their farm, or has been hiccuping for 67 years, chances are we're going to be the first people they phone.
If you go to the website Ripleys.com, there's a Submit Your Stuff category there where you can put in the items that you're looking for, that you would like Ripley's to take a look at. Edward Meyer is our guest on the program. For over 30 years, he's been traveling the world. He's the Vice President of Exhibits and Archives. And I read in an interview, you said one of the purchases you made you're most proud of was you actually have a chunk, and a rather large chunk, of the Berlin Wall.
Yes. It's a long time ago now, back in November of 1989, but it is the single item I am most proud of. I consider the creation of the Berlin Wall fairly significant, but the tearing of it down, I think, is, the first or second most important historical thing of the 20th century.
Yes.
We managed to get there 3 days after the initial hole was built. We'd been following the story for a couple weeks and really weren't quite sure. But at the last minute, we said, yes, we've got to be there. We have to witness this. And I went with an empty suitcase and a Swiss Army knife. And I had every intent, and I did, pick up enough small pieces to fill that suitcase. But when we got there, we saw that, the hole was getting bigger by the minute, but there was still lots of full intact pieces. And we said, well, all these other people are, happy with a piece as big as your fist. What if we got whole segments? And we were able to deal directly with the military and come away with 16 10-foot sections. So I have 160 feet of the original Berlin Wall. And for the most part, I got to hand pick it, so we got the pieces with the best graffiti and imagery on it that you could imagine. And, if you go to Berlin today, there's very little left to see. And to the best of our knowledge, we have the biggest collection of Berlin Wall in the world now.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest on the program is Edward Meyer. For over 30 years, he's been traveling the world picking up items like the Berlin Wall. That specifically is the top of his list. He's the vice president of exhibits and archives. The website is Ripleys.com. The book we're talking about specifically just out, Ripley's Believe It or Not. Dare to Look, the latest annual from Ripley Publications. This is like an excellent book for the holidays. It's a great gift idea for anybody because you'll find something in the book, believe me, that you're going to be interested in. One thing that I really liked in there, and looking through the book that really captured my attention, you've got like a cow that has a QR code on it, and people can like do whatever they do with those and find out all about cows.
Download cow information directly from a cow. Kind of a cute story. I like that one too. There is a whole chapter on technology. There's another chapter on animal oddities. The book is divided that, if you're not keen on a particular subject, you can skip over a few pages and find the area you really are interested in. But we truly hope that there's something for all ages and all people. Ripley's has been around for a long time. We're definitely multi-generational. My grandparents read it, and my kids read it too. And we like to try to please everybody, and that's literally impossible. But in a book of this size, there should be something for everybody.
Well, I like in the digital section, you've got jeans with a built-in keyboard, and I'm thinking that maybe has some practical applications.
Well, again, the most latest technology, and a couple years from now, it may not be unbelievable because we may all be wearing these jeans. But right now, that's a pretty astounding sort of technology that you sort of think of. Oh my goodness! 10 years ago, no one had a laptop, and 15 years ago, no one had a desktop, and when I started 30 years ago, the computer was in our office. One computer for the whole company was the size of a Mack truck. It just keeps changing.
It's interesting. You started working as an editor in the cartoon section, and I understand that's the longest running cartoon in the world, like since 1918. You've been doing the cartoons?
That's correct. Robert Ripley was a newspaper illustrator in a time before cameras, cameras literally existed, but the newspapers had an on-staff artist that would draw the stories of the day rather than taking photos. And Ripley's specialty was sports items. Born in Santa Rosa, California, first job in San Francisco in 1909, moved to New York City in 1913. For the first 5 years, he's drawing totally sports items. But in 1918, he comes, literally called a slow day at the office. He puts together something, and he puts the title "Believe It or Not" on it. And it literally didn't change overnight, but relatively quickly, it's more popular than his sports drawings. And he starts traveling around the world looking for items that are absolutely 100% true, no matter how unbelievable they may seem. But if Ripley put his name on it, you can guarantee that it's 100% true. And that's still true today. We will not publish it. We will not put our name on our museums, our TV shows, our records, our radio show. Anything that says Ripley's, we've got fact-checked to the nth degree to make sure it's 100% authentic.
Well, it's interesting because there are people that are skeptics. One gentleman spent, 29 years trying to prove Ripley was wrong, and he couldn't do it.
Wayne Harbor from Bedford, Iowa. He worked at a post office, so that probably explains how he got the envelopes and the stamps. But every day for 29 years, at random, he would pick one of the items from the daily newspaper. And, our cartoon, I was going to say a second ago, has been running every day since 1918. So 95 years, 365 days a year, longest running newspaper feature in the history of publishing. Well, Wayne Harbor would randomly pick one item from that day's cartoon, and typically a daily panel has 3 or 4 items to choose from. And he would write a letter to them, and then, if he couldn't find the exact address, he'd send it to the Better Business Bureau or care of City Hall or care of the fire department, depending on, what the subject matter was. And he got thousands and thousands of responses, not literally every one, but enough to fill a container truckload of responses. Never got a negative response. Every single letter he got said, yep, Ripley told the truth. Yes, we did grow a potato shaped like, Jimmy Durante, or yes, we do have a three-headed dog, whatever. Whichever one he chose, every single answer he got was positive. At the end of 29 years, he died. His widow gave us all of the responses, and they're on display throughout our 32 museums in 10 different countries around the world. Every museum has a Wayne Harbor exhibit, The Man Who Wouldn't Believe.
And it's interesting. I wonder if he ever knew that someday all of my work is actually going to be documented in one of the Ripley's museums. That's fascinating.
I think he'd be real proud. I don't think he had a clue.
Edward Meyer, our guest on the program, Vice President of Exhibits and Archives. The book we're talking about, it's available at bookstores all across the country, just in time for the holidays. Ripley's Believe It or Not, Dare to Look, the latest annual. It's got the OddScan that we talked about earlier on the program. It's a beautiful-looking book. It's got hundreds of color photos. The book is available, like I said, all across the country. More information at the website, Ripleys.com. While we got a second to wrap things up here, let's talk about that empire that you were talking about. As I'm looking into Ripley's, this is much larger than I thought. In fact, you got, a new aquarium that you just opened in Toronto.
Our latest establishment, we have actually 90 attractions in 10 countries, and we have 14 different major brands. Now, the mother lode is Ripley's Believe It or Not, of which there's 32 museums in 10 countries, but we have haunted houses, we have miniature golfs, we have moving theaters, we have wax museums, we have Guinness World Record museums, and we have 3 aquariums. They're our largest attractions. And just last month, we opened the third one, the Aquarium of Canada in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which is my hometown, ironically. Our offices haven't been there for 20 years, but it's like going home again. And it is a world-class aquarium, literally the biggest in all of Canada, and comparable to the Shed in Chicago or Monterey Bay in California. It is a major world-class aquarium.
A long way from the original auditorium that Robert Ripley came up with and opened, I believe, in Chicago. I love the name of that, the auditorium.
Well, it's a word that he actually took out the copyright on. It doesn't translate too well in foreign countries, so there's some places we still say we're a museum, but it's our patented word that we call our places auditoriums. Typically, the building itself looks odd. We try to make the buildings all distinctive. Here in Orlando, we're sinking into a sinkhole, and Gatlinburg, Tennessee, it looks like it's been hit by lightning, and et cetera. But we really want to distinguish that we're not a dusty, dry museum. There's a lot of fun to be had in these walls.
Well, the book is an excellent one. Like I said, you'll pick it up. You won't put it down for a while. You'll be fighting over it. Who's going to look at the Ripleys tonight? It's Ripley's Believe It or Not, Dare to Look, the latest annual from Ripley Publishing. It's available all across the country. Our guest on the program has been Edward Meyer, the Vice President of Exhibits and Archives. Edward, thank you for joining us on the program. Hopefully you can come back sometime. A lot of interesting things to talk about. Thank you for joining us.
Well, my privilege. Thanks for having us, and glad to come on anytime you want us.
You're listening to This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.